The Prime Minister and her husband, Keir Starmer, come out of their house and go up to their car. And Keir Starmer says, "Oh, the doors are locked and I've locked the car keys inside. Oh, I better get a locksmith to open the door for us." And his wife says, "Well, we better hurry up because it's an open top convertible and the top's open and it's going to rain soon."
Well, that's a typical example of a sort of woke mentality, isn't it? Really, that gag. But and I've just found out I can't really impersonate Keir Starmer very well. You know, I had a good try, but nah, it's a bit rubbish, wasn't it? Anyway, good evening and welcome to another exciting show with me and Fred the Plant, who's doing impersonation of Nathan. So over to you, Fred. What do you think? No, he's not very good at impersonating. But quarter of an hour ago, Nathan said, this is Nathan Allenby. He said, "Give us 5 minutes. I've got a bit of a bandwidth problem. I'll be back with you." That was a quarter of an hour ago. I don't know where he is. I think he's gone to his neighbour's house to get on his neighbour's internet and broadcast from there. So I'm going to fill in until he comes along because he's got a very interesting show tonight. And it's so, first off, I'd like to thank two people for being extremely kind. And that is Stephen Coombs for buying me some coffees and Sue Adkins for also buying me some coffees. I've had a really good week this week. Thank you so much for your kindness. I'm very moved, very choked. Thank you very much in a nice way. It's much appreciated. It means a lot to me. So thanks, Stephen and Sue. Thank you very much for both of you. It's very, very kind of you. And I mentioned your surnames. I didn't get permission. I'm terribly sorry, but oh well, you know, sorry about that. Anyway, what I was going to say is that I'm now planning a show, not only having the world's worst record spot on it, but also I'm actually talking to Paul English. I'm thinking of having the world's worst architecture. Now, there's the Sterling Award for architecture. I'm thinking of having the Fockham Award for crap architecture. And I think that I've got a beauty, absolute beauty. And I might put forward a few, few of the projects I've worked on. That'd be a laugh, wouldn't it? But no, that'd be really shoot myself in the foot. But there's a beauty going up near where I live. I would say it's in the style of early English disaster. It's a building site at the moment, but to actually appreciate the real pure crap, you've got to sort of look at it, you know, from a sort of an aesthetic or lack of aesthetic point of view. And I'm going to take some pictures over the next couple of weeks, and the show will be coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So if you've got any beautiful pieces of crap architecture that, you know, we give awards on how satanic it looks, how complete lack of imagination, and how depressing the entire structure is. That's what I think we'll give awards on. So if you get your old cameras clicking and send them through to me, and remember, the thing is to can you give us, you know, you'd have to give me a couple of days before the show goes live. It won't be until a couple of weeks' time. So you've got plenty of time to look around for some really crap architecture. And it's not only in Great Britain. Even if you're overseas, you might see some architecture that just looks like an elongated turd. Like I'd say the what's that building in London? You can see it from miles away. Canary Wharf. Yes, that's like an elongated turd. It's like, and there it is. But anyway, let's have a look in chat. And first of all, guess who gets brownie points this week? It's Sue Atkins. Hello, Sue. First at last at 5:49 p.m. Now that's bloody keen, isn't it? I mean, that's not only brownie points, I'd say that's a gold star as well. So thanks, Sue. And then we've got Paul Green. Hope you're all well. Look forward to the show. I'm first again. No, you're not. Sue beat you. So there we go. So sorry about that. Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on. hang on. Now we got to get the cucumber sandwiches ready to tempt him on. I think he's coming. Come on, Nathan. Come on, boy. There he is. And there he is. Hey, we got some cucumber sandwiches out to tempt you on. Was that enough? But
Oh, so
we've been
we
talking
were
about
going to do an audio-only broadcast tonight, and Eric at the last minute decided we should do a video instead. So it's just a matter of getting the internet connection. Actually, this is the hard thing, because I've gone to a mobile internet connection, and you don't get a good connection everywhere in the house. Oh, there we go.
The thing is, Mondays is always video, and the radio show is on Sundays. And this, hang on a minute, it is a Monday, isn't it? Yeah, it is Monday. It's Bank Holiday Monday.
It's confusing, isn't it?
It
feels like it's Sunday.
Yeah. So that's your that's your excuse, and my excuse is I should have told you it's a Monday, because I'm sure it's much better to see you as a person than it is a sort of a blank screen talking. It looks like AI, doesn't it? But I was just going through chat, and I've had a good week this week. 2 people have bought me coffees, and if anybody else would like to buy me a coffee, that's down below. Not in my crutch, no, in the comment or description below. There's details there, and also contact details, Telegram. And what we're going to talk about tonight, last time I talked about this with Professor Moss, YouTube was so impressed with it, they banned it. So, and that's mass formation. Now, they then gave me a week ban, and then they put me on probation for 3 months. So if I said anything naughty, my entire show the whole platform will be removed. Well, a couple of weeks or months later, I noticed that the mass formation show had been quietly put back. So, but they didn't say sorry or anything like that. And when you look on YouTube, there's loads of, videos about it. So we're going to chance it. Now, all right, if I am banned, if I am kicked off, don't really bother me, because we'll do next Monday's show via Rumble. So there's not really a problem as such. So to YouTube, or PukeTube as I prefer to call it. So there we go. So I was going to say, over to you, Nathan. Should we have a quick sniff in chat before we start?
Well, I could perhaps give a brief synopsis of what I want to talk about.
Why not? Okay.
So we're not really going to talk about politics tonight. We're going to talk about something far more important, and that's what we all really want. What we all really want, actually, is to be happy and feel fulfilled. We want to feel good about ourselves and feel good about our lives. And rather than talking about politics, which is a bit abstract, perhaps we should really get to the heart of the matter and talk about what we really care about. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of psychology tonight. And because YouTube might not like that, I'm going to say something right at the outset, which is nothing that I say should be taken as medical advice. If you are feeling depressed, unhappy, particularly if you're feeling, how can you go on, then you should get appropriate professional help. And I'm going to say you should go and see your doctor. I'm also going to say that the type of help that you can get through your doctor is very effective, and there's nothing to be worried about. So we'll say all of this at the beginning because it's really important. So there's a problem with passivity amongst the truth movement, and it's really bad. It's actually causing people to give up. So I know people who were speakers, organizers, and they just felt they were getting nowhere. They'd speak to an audience, the people would listen, they'd applaud, they'd say, that's really good, but then they wouldn't do anything. So, what's the point in warning people about impending disaster if everyone's just going to go and do nothing. You might as well have said not bothered. I'm trying to help people to find a solution to the most important problems in life. Now, having our world taken over by some nefarious power, that is a pretty big thing. But there's something more immediate that's happening right now. People are losing their lives day by day. And one of the astonishing things is how unhappy most people seem to be.
That's right.
Now, I've just done a little bit of digging. I won't say I've done any profound research, but I found quite quickly that 2/3 of the population are in various stages of depression.
Really? 2/3?
Yeah, really. So there's something like, I think we mentioned this in the last show, but there's something like 12 at any moment. The numbers vary slightly depending upon the month and various other things. But at any one time, there's probably between about 12 and 15% of the British population are in moderate to severe depression. On top of that, there's another 50% who are in a subclinical state of depression called languishing. And so this is a really big problem. That higher percentage of the population feel really devoid of meaning. Now, so what I'm going to talk about tonight, really, it's not just for people who are interested in politics. It's for people who'd like to be happier. I'm not a guru. I'm going to tell you things that will help you to look at life differently and maybe find help from somebody who really can help you. Right? I'm not a savior, but I know that there are people out there, and I'm going to suggest solutions that perhaps people haven't thought about before. So really, this isn't just for people who feel great. Primarily, this is for people who feel under pressure, are living in difficult circumstances, are poor, feel isolated and lacking in support, are frustrated with their lives, and most of all, feeling unfulfilled. I think we have to, offer something people positive that makes them motivated to do something for themselves. And we have to make them realize that what they need to do, what they want to do, is actually practical and attainable. So most people have got locked into this mindset where they think, I'm useless, what's the point? There's no opportunities for me. Let's look at this woman's mammary glands, or or whatever else. That there's so much distraction that's out there. So some people take to illegal drugs. Some people take to alcohol. These are things that are not good. I'm trying to offer people a better alternative to rather hopeless things like that. I want to give people a bit of hope. And believe it or not, things that are non-political are actually political solutions. So this is one of the things that I really want to encourage people to think about politics in a very different way. I want people to go through what I would call the spiritual revolution in politics. So instead of seeing things in terms of left and right, good and bad, them and us, instead of seeing things in terms of that polarization, I'd like people to think about things that are attainable in their own lives, about things that they'd like to do, and working out how they can achieve those. And very often, if you help yourself, in the process, you're going to help others too. And if
Spot on.
more of us set about doing that, we're actually going to create an empowering movement, which will change the lives potentially of millions, change the life of the whole nation. And I'm not talking about things that are pipe dreams. I'm talking about things that I've seen in my own life. I've seen as real. And I'll give you some examples. So there are two examples that I feel are really powerful here. One is I've spent some time in India, and about 20 years ago, my family went and spent a year in India, and we spent a lot of time living with people who were quite poor. We lived with a refugee community, and it's a strange thing, but you find a lot of single mothers, women who've either become separated from their family and from the husband as part of flight, or perhaps the husband's been killed, or various ways that families become separated. Anyway, we saw these groups of unsupported women with families. We saw how they coped, and the way they cope is they cope together. So rather than just trying to fend for themselves, they live precarious lives. So they don't always get food. They might go for, a few days or a week even perhaps without earning any money, without getting any food. If you've got a family, you can't afford that. You're going to die. So the way people survive, these particular women, is they group together. And you get groups of perhaps 4, half a dozen, maybe sometimes 8. But the point is they share their food. And when they're doing well, they share. And when they don't, they're really glad to have the support of the others. And of course, there are a whole load of other things that go along with this too. So, there's sociability, there's encouragement. People share ideas and solutions. Do you know that you can get this stuff cheap here? Hey, I've heard there's a little flat going, a room. That might suit you and your kids. It's all this sort of stuff that people share. I'll tell you another example. There's a research in America, Professor Drewinski, I think he's called, in Washington State University. Anyway, he's studied poverty and nutrition. And ironically, one of the things he's found is, yes, generally, if you're poorer, you eat less well. The exception is the Latino community. America's Latinos don't eat on their own. On the whole, they eat as an extended family. They eat together. Now, one of the great things about eating together is people share their troubles. Perhaps somebody can't see any answer, but between them, somebody will say, hey, have you tried this? Or come round to my place tomorrow. We'll sort something out between us. Or you need some money? I can tide you over. All of this sort happens when people get around a table together and share a meal. I'll tell you another thing as well. I remember going to Prague about 10 years ago. I'm very impressed by European women, Eastern European women.
So am I.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about, of course, in a human way, apart from the other attractions. That they're very practical, and they're nurturing.
Oh, I've noticed.
So one of the things I found was there's a culture, say in Czech society, and I think in Polish society too, that the woman's role, this is a very positive thing, they're proud of this, is that they can bring a family together with their food. They bring a family together around the table. Their job is to be nurturing, to heal divisions, to get people to talk to each other, to bring them together, to make them into a family. And, food, yeah, that's an important part of this. Of course, there are other things that they do as well. They've got a lot of very positive ideas about role models, about the positive things that they can do. And of course, it's mutual benefit. Everyone feels happier when everyone's happy together.
Yes. This is what we've lost in this country, isn't it? We lost that in the 50s or 60s, rather.
And so, there are all of these things that we think we've gained. We've got mass entertainment, we've got TVs, we've got, all sorts of personal music, personal videos, all of this sort of stuff. What we've lost is the one thing that really matters to us, and that's that somebody cares about us. We've lost that sense of connection where our lives matter. They don't just matter to ourselves. We feel that we matter to the people around us. So these are all very positive things that people can do in an immediate way. And I'll mention something else. And I'm going to go back to the Czech Republic again. And I had a very interesting time as the guest of some Czech political activists. And they described their coming to terms with their supposed freedom. So, of course, Eastern Europe was allegedly freed and became democratic, but they found nothing really changed in their society. So instead of having their society controlled by foreigners in Russia, they ended up with their society controlled by foreigners in other countries, mainly in Germany. And so they still didn't have control of their national destiny. They had certain types of freedom, but they didn't really have, an improvement in their lives. It felt like nothing real had changed. They'd just become serfs in a different kind of way. And that their lives were, in effect, just as constrained, and there was no sense of national self-determination. That they weren't actually choosing their own way. They weren't choosing what was right for their people. And that actually is important. No, maybe you get it wrong, but it's your choice. And of course, we have this illusion that we vote at elections and that somehow this makes a difference.
No,
but the whole point about globalization is that it doesn't. But there are larger forces.
I know what you mean, but if I can cut in there, I mean, I heard that in Bulgaria, and this is from just one person telling me, in Bulgaria during the communist times, and I've got no time for communism, I'll tell you, that they house ownership was encouraged, and people own their own houses. Now, if there's someone who's lived in Bulgaria, knows Bulgarians, please second this up. I only heard it from one person who was Bulgarian, but I just wondered, it's because that goes against the communist ethos of owning nothing and being happy. I mean, I didn't think people were allowed to own anything. They rented flats, or those given flats where they had to lump it or like it, like it or lump it. That was it. Didn't have any choice.
So
they did. So I don't know.
You're making actually a really good point here, because there are a lot of misconceptions, it seems, about what communist Eastern Europe was really like. So I wouldn't claim to be an expert on this. I only have heard bits and pieces from people I've met. But I get the impression that there was, in fact, a very great diversity between the different Eastern Bloc nations. They were not all following a common template. You've just described the example of home ownership in Bulgaria. So there'd be various different forms of capitalism and personal property and personal involvement in the market. in each of these different nations. They all look different. It made a huge difference to the people who lived in those countries. They weren't the same. And surprisingly enough, most people were relatively happy. And I know I don't really support the system, but most people at the time felt some sort of confidence in their governments. Now, this whole thing about you've got an election and you've got one choice, you can vote for the government. Well, okay, there might be a little bit of that. Actually, it varied a lot between countries, how much choice there really was at elections. But on the whole, I think there was a feeling that I'm going to be careful what I say here. It varied a lot between the different nations. In some of them, perhaps people felt it wasn't so bad. It wasn't total oppression.
You're right. I mean, I actually knew a girl whose father was Czech, and he came over here during the war. He was in the Czech army or something. No, Air Force, I think it was. And he flew over here, and he stayed here after the war. And she was half Czech, and she had relatives in the former communist Czechoslovakia. And she said that they had cushy jobs. They didn't really have to work that often. They didn't have to work hard. They're very, very cushy. And there was some shortages of that, but they had holidays and they sort of, and they had perks and things like that. And it wasn't so stringent. And I think, in Czechoslovakia, as it was known, and Bulgaria, maybe, I don't know about Poland, but you're quite right. It varied. These are the only two that I know of that were from that sort of that had that form of communism, that knew something about it. Someone that was actually from there, and there's one that was half Czech. But then I worked with a chap who was from Cuba, and he said in Cuba it was horrendous. If you had a car, the authorities would come along, chop it in half. You weren't allowed to have a car. It was only senior diplomats that had it. And we hear all the glossy side of Castro, but you don't hear the really bad side. And he said it was absolutely living hell in Cuba.
So I'm not, in no way am I trying to sort of say, gosh, wasn't communism good? And the point is, people on the whole did want progress, and they did, but they didn't get liberation when communism fell.
No,
so let's get to the real point of this story, which is quite important. The Czech people went through a bit of a crisis. Political activists went through a crisis. People who'd been imprisoned under communism. And, let's face it, if you were a dissident, you got a really hard time. The prisons were very tough. There were beatings. People, the prisons could be incredibly harsh. I know people who've been tortured. I met people who've been through psychiatric torture, injected with drugs that were intended to drive them mad. And I'm not at all romantic about communism, but I'm not romantic about what we've got now. And people who've been through all of this started to ask themselves, what happened? We got our freedom and we lost it. Where did it go? How did we allow this to happen? So there was a movement, and let's say this happened, say about 15, 20 years ago, a movement of self-examination where they asked themselves some questions. Are we passive? What was it that we did or allowed to happen? Eventually they realized they hadn't known freedom. Their nation hadn't known freedom for 450 years.
What nation was this? Sorry.
The Czech Republic.
Oh, Czech Republic.
The Czech Republic had not known freedom for 450 years.
Hmm.
They'd been ruled by a foreign empire, by the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Yes.
And then, when that ended, they got, between the wars, they got fascism. They got their own Czech version of fascism, and then the Germans invaded. And then after the war, they got communism. But if you went back the whole way, you'd had 450 years where they hadn't had any freedom. So Machiavelli talked about this. He said, people who've never known freedom don't know the habits of freedom, and they don't know how to keep freedom. I think he wrote about this in one of his books called The Discourses. Anyway, I haven't got the quote in front of me, but basically he said it's like a wild animal that's been kept in a zoo. It doesn't know how to hunt. It doesn't know how to keep itself free, doesn't know how to protect itself. It's very easy for somebody who finds it to capture it and put it in a cage again.
But don't you think this is collectivism, though, Nathan? I mean, the big problem is that we're programmed from school in a collective society. And when I say it about individualism, people think, oh, selfishness. Oh, no, it isn't. Individualism is the individual can express and can invent and be creative. Because when you think about it, before government started clamping down on people, I mean, if Henry Ford, if the automobile had never been invented and Henry Ford started today, he wouldn't stand a chance with all the rules and regulations. But
the competition is very difficult for new entrants to the market.
Well, that's right.
And so
we didn't get there. And but shall we quickly have a quick zooming chat just to sort of, and then we'll wander back. Is that all right, Nathan?
Go right ahead.
Right. Well, first of all, I thank Suzanne. Thank you very much. And also, we got where are we? I've lost myself. Here we are. Stephen Coombs, thank you very much as well. It's much appreciated. It really is. Buy me a coffee and that. And thanks, Stephen. And then we've got Mark Angley. Good evening to you and Fred the Plant. See, now that was before you came on, and I said Fred the Plant was trying to do a very bad impersonation of you. I mean, terrible. You've met Fred. But he does a brilliant impersonation of Keir Starmer. Absolutely brilliant. Put a bit of water in him, and he's even sort of, I'd already chat. Enjoyed the Rumble show last night. Fascinating stuff. Yes, I think you might know, Survival Steve, don't you? No, Steve. Yeah. He was talking about numerology and geometry and that type of thing. Wow. But please don't turn over to it now. And guess what happened at the end of the show? Because Rumble is it's a bit lumpy, actually. I'm not as experienced at it. I mean, I'm used to StreamYard, which I use on YouTube. But with Rumble, I use Rumble Studio, you see. And I don't know what it is about Rumble Studio, but we had technical issues with it almost every week. The other week, it wouldn't actually go live. I had to come out and come in again and all that. And then one week, I just couldn't get anywhere with it. Well, last night, you see, it wouldn't let me close down the show. So I thought if it closed down, so I sit there and the sort of people are hearing sort of as I'm having a scratch. Then I phoned Steve up, had a bit of a conversation with him, and then as I'm drinking some water. And then I thought, hang on a minute, there's still a few people in chat, and it's still live. So at the end of the show, you got about 2 minutes of hearing me scratch, break winds. This won't happen on StreamYard. But what is it about? I think it's probably a new kid on the block. This it's an excuse for my incompetence. I don't know what it is about Rumble Studio. It might be because it is relatively new, or it's probably more that I'm a bit incompetent using it, not that experienced. But it was funny last night. Now I've got Jojo Gizmo, Evening Lads and Lasses. I'm Fred the Plant, and then we've got no butcher. Hadji says no butcher, no baker. Remember the candlestick maker? They're taking it all down. Yes, spot on. And I'll tell you what else they're doing. They're deliberately destroying people's markets. Deliberately doing it. Waltham Abbey, where I live, there used to be a very, very vibrant, very, I mean, the market. I remember you had to queue to get around it. It was so busy. What happened is, I won't say which one, but two major supermarkets opened up one side of the town with free car parking. Some out of town shopping opened up, some famous shops opened up the other side of the town. And then the council thought, I know what we'll do. We'll impose car park charging. So why would anybody bother to go to the high street when they're going to the supermarkets up the end of town and park for free in a gigantic car park? Excellent way of destroying the market. And Waltham Cross is doing the same. They've got a major supermarket one end of the town, and now another one's opened up the other end of the town. Why should people bother to go in and see the market when they can go and park free of charge? And it's all worked out to destroy local business. And,
independent, small business.
Correct, yes. Because there's a big difference between...
what will happen when CBDCs come in? And of course, at that point, small businesses will be shut out.
Oh, you're right. Mind you, there are a few stores that take cards now, but I will not. I only do with cash. Now,
however,
sorry.
Yeah, I think the point is the only way we'd keep an alternative economy that's free of CBDCs is by keeping the small independent businesses alive.
Well, free enterprise, that's it, which is very different to capitalism. People lumping it both as no. Henry Ford, he believed in free enterprise, and he could have taken over loads of small suppliers to his Ford business, and he didn't. And I asked him why, and he said, because we're good at making motor cars and they're good at making windscreen wipers, brake parts. He said, and if we take them over, they won't be as good. So, and he said that, and we get the best because we get this competition between the other ones. Now we got here, I have a German Eastern European friend, Hachi, that tells me I don't know what's coming, calls me an Insel Affen, island monkey. Now we got here, hello, this is Cameron. Everyone, hope all is good. I'm a bit late, but will forge my parents' note. Oh, we haven't heard that. Parents' note later. Ha ha. Oh, don't think we can allow that, Nathan, can we? I don't know. No, we didn't hear it. Turn a blind eye. 20 fock bobs, backhand up. We won't notice it. How's that? All right. So that's the Fogham Hall internal currency. Now we got here. Camera, here we go, and then we go down. Oh, Herodotus Skepfucht says, interesting. You form your own group to help each other, and then the council will get involved with a government app, suits and pens. Yes, that's what to be wary of, because I think it was Ronald Reagan. Yes, it was Ronald Reagan that said the most scariest sentence in the English language is, hello, I'm from the government. I'm here to help you. It's a terrifying sentence, that is. And then we've got Cat Holly. Hello, Cat. Hello to all. Sorry to be late. Got no. Excellent. That's what we like to hear. A bit of bribery, please. 5 foot bobs. Here we go. Backhanding, And there we got here. Kara, okay. I'm awaiting a commie speech from our. Yes. Hello, Kara. Okay. I'm awaiting the commie speech from our Fabian leader tomorrow. Yes, Keir Stalin, that's right. Or staring Stalin. And not sure what the speech you're on about. Don't don't do mainstream shit at all. This is camera. But do you actually think, Nathan, that looking at it technically and positively, that Keir Starmer actually acts as if he's got a cucumber up his arse, or actually has got one? Because he's sort of. Do you remember that? Do you remember that bloke on the piano in Sparks that used to sort of?
Yeah.
Like, he's a bit like it was the. What was his name there? He's a bit creepy, wasn't he? He's a bit like that fella in Sparks. Perhaps as he was growing up, he saw Sparks and thought, "That's the man I want to be." You know, all he needs is a piano. Sort of, ding, 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 ding. But I actually find Starmer creepy, very creepy.
Yeah.
There's something about that man that
He's not a sympathetic character, is he? He doesn't make you feel this guy's on my side.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. There's something.
So he's promised us that things are going to get worse, and he needs 10 years to fix it.
I thought commies had 5-year plans, don't they? You know.
Yeah,
I like what was said by Orson Welles in what was that film now? The Third Man.
Oh
He
yeah.
acted the part of a drug runner. And it was a really good film. He actually the part of a psychopath. And he said, governments have their 5-year plans. So do I. And they're for me. They've got their 5-year plans. I've got my 5-year plans. And my personal view is we should try and carry on and ignore the sods. Just ignore them.
Yes, that's actually... And the problem is, I think very many people in the truth movement somehow hope that the government's going to help them. And that's the wrong attitude. We've got to do it for ourselves.
You're right. You're spot right on. I've often said, if you want a leader, look in the mirror. That leader will be looking back at you.
That's exactly right. Yes, that's very much what I wanted to say. So can I just finish off what I was trying to say about this spiritual revolution in the Czech Republic, in Prague? So basically, people realized they'd had this 450 years of oppression and that they'd never been independent. And they realized that they'd become servile. Just as you've described, they're looking for somebody else to do it for them. They're looking for a leader. They're looking for somebody else to tell them what to do. And that's what's happened to us. We've had 1,000 years. That's how long we've been oppressed. We've been oppressed for 1,000 years. And it's really got deep into our psychology. Now, the people in Prague went through a process of trying to free their minds. They did all sorts of things. They did meditation, they did discussion groups, they challenged each other. There were lots of things they tried, but ultimately, whatever route people took, when they'd been through it, when they'd come through this change, at the end of it, they started looking for solutions. They started looking for things they could do. They looked for people that they could work with. This is the important thing, to look for people that you can work with. So the people who haven't been through that revolution, they talk in terms of conflict and people that they're opposed to. I hate them, they do this. I don't agree with that. The people who've been through this spiritual revolution start to talk about, I want to do this. I wonder who I can find to work with. Would you be interested? Would you like to help me? And that's the change. Stop fighting people and find people that you can work with. Think of things that you want to achieve and you want to get done. Find people that you can work with to make it happen.
Spot right on. That is perfect. And also,
So,
I think, and also, if I could just wander off at a slight tangent, I think it's the Czech Republic where every year for a laugh, because I think they're like Monty Python, they actually have an annual silly walk through the city. And they videoed it. All these people doing silly walks through the city with bowler hats and briefcases. We've lost that in this country. We've lost that humour. We lost that fun, that sense of living, that sense of, for eccentrics. Where is the great British eccentric? We want more eccentrics. But sorry, carry on, Nathan.
Yes.
I'm in there.
Yes, that's something that I always believed in. That in Britain you were free to be yourself, and you could be an eccentric, you could be a character. That sort of thing was that was actually part of being British.
Yeah.
So let's go back to these the poor in India, because this is another part of the story. If you're at the bottom of society somewhere like India, nobody's going to give you a job. It's very difficult to get a job. What you're probably going to have to do is you're going to have to find something you can do for yourself independently to make your own money. So it's actually quite difficult to start a business on your own. And there are certain resources, there'll be certain skills, certain experience that you need. But that's actually difficult if you're, one person on your own. Perhaps you've got other disadvantages like children to look after, or no experience of doing it before, or all these other things. What happens is, though, if you get a group of people together, they can actually make it happen. Somehow they're stronger together. And people who've got nothing, when you get 4 or 5 people who've got nothing together, somehow they find they've got enough. So this is actually the empowering thing to do. People need other people, and we've got to find a way to work together. So this idea of cooperatives is something that we need to encourage. I think this is what made the big change in British society in the 19th century. And there are other examples as well. I think I mentioned this to you last week, but the Mondragon Cooperative in the Basque country of Spain.
That's right, yes.
And so that's another example I'd like people to try and look up. So the Basques had fought against Franco in the Spanish Civil War. Franco was going to do nothing for them to help them, their society, their economy. He would prefer that they were poor, actually. He wouldn't want to see them empowered by having extra means, extra resources. So they realized if they were going to do anything to lift their situation, they're going to have to do it themselves. The government wasn't going to help them. So there was actually a Catholic priest got the idea that somebody was going to have to provide spiritual leadership. And he actually saw this as a spiritual project. So he thought that the way to make things happen was through cooperatives, strangely enough. And he got talking to people, and there was a business that wasn't doing very well. It was a business making paraffin heaters. Not a very inspiring sounding business. But anyway, it wasn't doing well. And the owner decided, well, why not make it a cooperative? I've got nothing to lose. And then they found another business and they joined them. And then they managed to start 2 other cooperatives. It's funny this, how suddenly, when it wasn't just one person running the business, and when all of them were cooperating, somehow they found ways to make the business work better. And they got some new ideas, new enthusiasm. Everything seemed to go better. Once they'd got 4 businesses, then they started their own bank. And that's when things really took off. So within about 20 years, They got about 100 businesses. And it started in about 1953. You know, by the mid-70s, they were up to about 100 businesses. So one of the things that you know about starting a new business in Britain is there's over a 95% failure rate of new businesses in Britain.
I know, because I run my own business.
So in Mondragon, they started 100 businesses and only one of them failed. Because they had this bank. And not only did this bank provide financial support, it provided financial advice, and it made sure that the businesses succeeded. You know, it was a partner with them. It wasn't just profiting from them. It wanted them to grow. It was not just providing, you know, money that they would get repayments on. It wanted to see them thrive. Do you need investment? Let's make sure you get it. Now, I think today there are maybe over 350 businesses in Mondragon. As I mentioned, one of them is the largest manufacturer of car components in Europe. You know, it's got to be an astonishing, a multi-billion-dollar business, you know, that, and it provides a whole series of things like housing cooperatives, medical cooperatives. It's become a very diverse social enterprise beyond just making money. Cooperatives, I want people to start thinking about this, and particularly about the role of mutual finance. This is the key thing, a cooperative bank integrated into the process of job creation.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because the thing in this country, I know this from experience. I mean, I had a limited company, huge number of employees. Me, I employed myself. That's what we did. When you contract, you start a limited company. Used to do this. You probably wouldn't be aware of it. And you were the only sole employee. You see, so it's quite good actually. You know, you're sort of you're a director. So people say, "What's your experience?" What, the company director? I think, how many employees do you have? One. Who is that? Me. And the big trouble, you get a double whammy. You pay employers and employees national insurance, and you have to have an accountant to do your accounts each year. And I found that I was an unpaid civil servant, because there you are spending most of the time doing your accounts, and all I was a contract bloke, and that was the way you sort of got away a little bit with tax. But they've clamped down on that now, so having a limited company is a waste of time. But the trouble is that, all right, if you're sick, you don't get paid. You've gone on holiday, you don't get paid. You only get paid for the hours that you work. So when you contract, you work. You work damn hard. But the thing is, people say, "Oh, yeah, that's all good from the permanent people." Yeah. So, well, okay, try it yourself. And because you're working, you always think, is there another have I another crust of bread? When this contract's over, is there another contract? So you're always a little bit on edge that you're going to get more work. And then sometimes there's flat spots where you go for several weeks without finding any work at all. You know, that's the way it goes. But the trouble is that it's daunting. If a person starts a business in this country, the Inland Revenue are down on you as if you're the biggest crook you could wish to think of. And they're down on the small people, but turn a blind eye to the big people. And that's the trouble.
Yeah, I think you said that right there. And there are a whole load of things that they do to make it much harder. And there are restrictions on cooperatives, and particularly on mutual banking. So there are sort of capital limits. You've got to be bigger than a certain size before you can become a bank and this sort of thing. Well, having said that, though, I do actually know a person in the movement who did all of the work to set up a bank. So there are various things that you've got to do. One of them is raise £5 million to put in a bond with the Bank of England. That's money you've just got to give to the Bank of England. Don't get any interest, don't get anything back. You've got to give them £5 million, and they keep it while you're in business. Anyway, he managed to raise the 5 million quid and all the other things, but he couldn't get enough support from people in the movement, sadly. And there are people out there who really are making the effort. They're doing the work. They're willing to do things for the rest of us, but we've got to show some enthusiasm and make the effort ourselves. And I know lots of activists who have burnt out because they're trying so hard. They're trying to make things happen, and they just meet with a wave of indifference.
Yes.
Because, oh, jolly good, that's jolly. You carry on, you're doing a good job there, mate. But they won't actually do anything themselves. They won't support them. Say, I've gone to a meeting, for example, I've given a list of practical things that people can do to change their lives. Who does them? Nobody. I've gone back, a couple of months later, and I've asked people. I said, so I gave you a talk before. I asked you to do this, this, and this. Did you do it? Raise your hands if anyone tried it. Of course, nobody does. I gave you another talk. I said, would you try this, this, and this? Did anyone do it? No hands go up. It's why people stop trying. So I'm going to say to people out there, if you want people like us to make an effort on your behalf, please respond. We're not looking for money. What we really want is for you to try things that will help everybody. I'm not going to get anything from it personally, other than the satisfaction of knowing I've changed somebody else's life for the better.
Well, that's perfect, because I live in an area of 55 houses around where I live. Okay. Now, my council tax is phenomenal price. It's almost £200. It's over £200 a month. And wow. What do you get for that? Beanies emptied it once every 2 weeks. They don't sweep the roads, because where I live, you own in front of your property up to the curb opposite. So they don't sweep it because it's private. Plus, what else do I get for that? No police as such. I'm just trying to think. I haven't got any children, so, but all I do get is, when it's council elections, loads of bullshit through the post telling you how marvellous these councillors are. And one councillor, who's now the local MP, was a deputy police commissioner and claimed £28,000 per year expenses. Huh? £28,000.
Probably a very busy man working for the community.
Oh, yes, I say. I won't say who it is, but people know where I live. And apparently, I've been told, allegedly, and I've been told this, that he was parachuted in, this chap. He lives locally, yes, but he was parachuted in. And most of the people in the party don't like him. But the thing is, you've got these goofballs that are sort of, hey, hello, I'm not essential. Hello, they come down, hello. Well, they're taking the responsibility that you should have away from you. The council, quite honestly, it's just full of bureaucracy. But what I'm going to say is, if I worked it out, if the 55 properties where I live paid a private contractor to take their rubbish away, and there's a company that can do it for about 250 quid a year, we'd be quids in. And for education, well, we could hire a hall, and people have got children, pay to have good teachers. And if the teachers start teaching them about all kinds of weird, wacky things, teachers are out. That's it. And they get someone that does know about education. We would have a say in it. The people would have a say in it, not the council, with all their rules and regulations and things like that. So, when you go past a school now, it's like Fort Knox. I was walking along once, and I found a child, like a purse. I thought, and it had money in it, and I opened it up, and it had a card that belonged to a teenager that went to a certain school. So I went to the school and I had to ring a bell, sort of random buzzer. Yes. So I said, I've actually found something near a bus stop. I said, it's a purse. I said, and it belongs to one of the pupils in your school. Oh, what's your name, please? Huh? I said, I don't go to your school. I said, I'm just an average passerby. I said, I'm doing the good thing. I found this person. I'm giving it in. So I said, "Oh, my name's Chris. Hi, what's yours?" Anyway, they pressed the buzzer. I went in, and they treated me really offhandedly. I said, "Look, I found this purse on the ground. I looked inside. It belongs to a card from one of your pupils." Oh, okay then, right. That's all they said. I just walked out. So, they could have said, "Oh, thank you very much. It's very kind of you to hand that in." Anybody else would have probably pocketed it. And I said, "Look, there's money inside. I haven't touched it." Yeah, we don't. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Could care less. But it was like getting into Fort Knox, and I was treated like a criminal for going in there. Just
There's
give
an
me this.
awful lot I'd like to say about that, actually, because it's a real subject of controversy.
Mm-hmm.
So the children can't get out.
That's right. They can't get out.
It's impossible for them to say, say, for example, there was something that they didn't want at school, like they didn't want to be vaccinated. It'd be very difficult for them to run away out of school.
Always.
But at the same time,
Who did you get off YouTube? Sorry.
Well, at the same time, strangely enough, certain other people are able to take children out of school, it seems. Can see it every day. Anyway, let's move on to something else. So I'd like to try and keep the theme going of, finding happiness. I think what you just illustrated is the focusing on problems and looking for other people to solve your problems. The important thing is to try and think of solutions. And thinking of solutions is actually a different type of thought process. It actually requires effort to cultivate it. Not because it's difficult, but because it's so unfamiliar. We're not encouraged to be hopeful, appropriate type of problem solving. So forgive me, I'll just talk a bit more about what depression looks like, because I think it's an appropriate introduction to a lot of things that we need to understand. So languishing, is this sort of persistent condition where people find it difficult to get a grip, to be effective, to choose the course of their own lives. They might have highs and lows. They might have times when they feel extrovert. They might go out and have a night on the town and drink too much. But those moments don't actually lead to a constructive change in direction. The times when they've got more energy, they're not able to use those to change the direction. So they still remain unfocused. And it's a condition that's very difficult to escape without help. It's not something that happens quickly. It's not about just shifting the groove on a record, where a record gets stuck in a groove. Most people don't have records these days. It just goes round and round the same track. It's not as just giving it a nudge and it'll move on. You've actually got to learn a few new habits, and to cultivate those habits takes time, and not to slip back while you're learning those habits actually requires help. So depression's kind of like a state of mind, and it's where you become so preoccupied with problems that you can't see solutions. So it's like a trap of habitual patterns of behavior and thought. Just to say again, I am not a medical professional. I am not a psychologist. I am not qualified to give advice. If you are feeling depressed or unwell, please go and see your doctor or get appropriate help. But I think it's useful for all of us to talk about depression and what it looks like. If this helps you, that's good, but I am not giving medical advice. So, yes, depression's about getting trapped in habitual patterns of behavior and thought. It's linked to sort of low activity, disorganization, chaos, difficulty in establishing new, healthier patterns of behavior. And again, it's difficult to break out of without sustained support. Now let's talk about the truth movement as a bit of a comparison. The truth movement on the whole is preoccupied with problems. It rarely discusses solutions.
Spot on.
It's trapped in habitual patterns of behavior and thought. It's characterized by low activity and low achievement.
Yes.
People sit around talking, but they don't actually do anything. It's not very organized, and it's not very effective. And more than that,
but if I can
it's marginalized.
That's right.
It's not organized, it's not effective, and it's marginalized. And it has difficulty in breaking out and establishing new and more effective patterns of behavior and thought. Put all of that together, the truth movement has all of the characteristics of depression. It has unhealthy psychology.
It has. You're spot on. Absolutely spot on.
And this is why it doesn't achieve anything.
Also, it becomes a cult, and they're looking for a leader all the time. Look at what's name said here. Look at what little Tommy Trousers is doing in Bedfordshire, and Katie Hoppypops. I won't say their full names, but to me, they are diversions. They're looking for leaders, and those people are not leaders. That's the problem.
But of course, you see, coming back to Machiavelli, that's because for 1,000 years in Britain, nearly 1,000 years, we have been oppressed. We have been, we don't do things for ourselves. We've lost our way. We're looking for leaders because we're used to taking orders.
Correct. Spot on. Spot on.
But the truth movement, unfortunately, it's got all of these negative characteristics. It doesn't look for solutions. It doesn't talk about solutions. And maybe perhaps this is where we need the spiritual revolution to stop looking for people to blame and start looking for people to work with. We've got to actually think of things we want to do and work out how we can do them. And I think there's actually, so one of the things I've noticed is that effective people tend to avoid the truth movement. I've noticed occasionally effective people who've actually achieved something in their own lives, come along to meetings and, say the anti-lockdown movement or the truth movement or whatever else. These people come along maybe once and they don't come back. And what they see as effective people is they see it's first of all, it's not an organization, and they see that it won't achieve anything. They see its lack of aims. They'll see that all they do is sit around complaining. There's nothing to engage with. If you come along wanting to do something, there's nothing you can participate in. There's nothing you can contribute to. It's a waste of time being there. Effective people notice they're wasting their time there.
it gave me depression. It made me depressed, and I didn't realise it at the time. It's only in hindsight you realise these things, because when it comes to depression, I've got the mug and the t-shirt, and the thing is that I've often said depression would have something going for it if it wasn't so depressing. When you think about it, it'd be a bit cracking if it wasn't so depressing, wouldn't it? I think I'll have a dose of depression. It's quite positive this week, But no, I'm only joking. But seriously, that's the problem with depression. It's too depressing. Yeah. I'm actually on St. John's Wort, man. St. John's Wort. You can get it quite legally anywhere, really. But that's good, St. John's Wort.
It's difficult. Have you tried looking to buy some recently? It's not so easy to get hold of. A lot harder than it used to be.
Really? I got it from Miles. He's the Dr. Fleetwood from Abbey Health Foods. And yeah, he gets it on the shelf there. That's why I'm spaced out most of the time, man. I'm on sort of,
So I can remember I used to be able to get it from Home Bargains, all sorts of places, and I think they made it harder. Anyway.
It's not very good. Actually, you've got to get the good quality stuff. You can buy. This is a totally different subject we're going on to, but when it comes to things like vitamins, you've got to get good quality. You can buy stuff at the supermarkets, which is absolutely. You probably get more vitamin by sniffing the box. It's so bad. And there's a shop which is very popular, which is a sort of a double name. Something to do with the Dutch, I think, but I won't go further than that because they've got better lawyers than I can afford. So I wouldn't go there. And the thing is, you've really got to go for the top quality if you're going to. And St. John's Wort, I know what you mean. It is difficult to get hold of, but I can get hold of it, and it's quite legal. There's nothing, you can get hold of it quite legally. So. But onward, as we say, we're going into the health things now. But what I'm going to say...
And, so what I would say is the talking therapy that is provided by your GP is very effective. I'm not actually just saying that. Actually, things like this cognitive behavioral therapy, no, but some of the tools are actually effective, and there's no harm in trying it. I'm seriously not discouraging people from going to see their GP and getting help if they need it.
Well,
but of course, we're responsible people.
But if someone, if I can just cut in there, anyone wanted to go and see a psychiatrist needs their head tested. Sorry about that one.
Well, you'd be very lucky to get to see one.
I actually think the psychiatrist, when you see, when I used to have a television, so I'm on television, I think they needed a psychiatrist.
Yeah, that's an old one, isn't it? That all the mad folk want to become psychiatrists to try and sort themselves out.
I saw a book once. Was it How to Stop Worrying and Get On With Your Life, or something like that? And
I know.
It was written by a bloke, and he was a typical American, and he had actually been on the American submarines during World War II, and he'd been depth charged by the Japanese for 48 hours non-stop. And a lot of the fellas went delirious. He went completely white. His hair went white, and people were just going mad. And he gave him psychiatric problems. And of course, if that had risen to the surface and was captured by the Japanese, who knows what would have happened? Very different to the Germans. I mean, what was it? I think you had something like a 5% chance if you were captured by the Japanese of surviving, which if you're captured by the Germans, I think you had something like a 75% chance. It's phenomenal, or 85% chance of surviving. Different mentality. I'm not criticizing modern Japan and saying that. It was then. But what I was going to say, he wrote this book, and he said when he got people into his because they call them doctor's office in America, and they said they have shell shock, which was known as then, not a modern name for it. He would look them straight in the eye and say, "I know what you're going through," because he did know what they're going through, and he was a top psychiatrist helping veterans post we call it now post-traumatic stress disorder. his book was absolutely fantastic. It really was. I was actually in W.H. Smith's once reading through it, and I got carried away. I must have been there for a bleeding hour reading through the book. Must have thought, tight-fisted sod, can he go and buy the book, you know? But anyway, sorry, all with the show, as we say. You was going to say, Nathan, sorry.
Yeah, so what we've just described is the truth movement doesn't actually achieve anything, because it's like the embodiment of depression, and people who are depressed can't achieve anything. And what we need to do, if we're actually going to achieve anything, is we've actually got to start adopting the more positive, more effective, and happier state of mind. Ultimately, what we want to achieve is happiness. We want to achieve our own happiness and happiness for other people. We can't, until we work out how to do that for ourselves, we aren't going to be able to help anybody else.
You're right.
But there's another dimension to this, of course, which is psychological warfare. You know, that this is about psychological warfare. Now, psychological warfare is a bit of a big term, and it, you know, for example, envisages that somebody is actually consciously fighting a war against you. And sometimes it is like that somebody does have a conscious design. More often, it's just a bigger scheme of things. So, for example, the consumer society makes people very passive. Rather than trying to make things and do things for yourself, you become somebody who just buys things, you spend money. You don't actually actively make things yourself. The consumer society has become somewhere where goods get broken, but you can't repair them. So you can't do anything when they're broken. You can't take the initiative to either repair them yourself, work out how they work, and find out the bit that's gone wrong. You can't get a new part. You can't take it to a bloke who'll fix it. You've just got to buy another one as a consumer. And this makes people extremely passive. They are not participants. They're almost like passengers watching their own lives. You know, they're not part of it. They're not directly engaged. Now, we've actually got to help people to move through that. So this is really about state of mind. You know, it's working out for the first time, because many people will never have lived through this. You know, Eric, you and myself, when we were young, kids did more for themselves. We had to entertain ourselves more. TV was not available 24 hours a day. If we woke up, you know, there wouldn't be TV to watch. We had to find something to entertain ourselves. We used to use our imagination. We used to make things. You know, it was amazing the things that kids did make for themselves. Today, some of these things would be considered amazingly unsafe, like casting lead soldiers. You know, melting lead, toxic to children, pouring it into a mold. But anyway, we did this stuff. I did this stuff.
Did you make tanks out of cotton reels? I did.
Oh, I did some of that when I was younger. Yeah, I did.
I'll tell you the other one. We had Airfix models.
I had something on Blue Peter. I think I got a Blue Peter badge.
Oh, lucky for you. We're about similar age. And I'll tell you something else. We had Airfix models, Meccano.
Oh, yes.
Meccano, they actually made, they did something they did it deliberately. The instruction manual left certain things out to make you use your brain to work it, fathom it out. That was deliberate. But some of the things that he was always being constructive. And I mean, my dad was a great DIY person. So we never had a repairman in the house at all. We just repair everything. I'm the same. I repair anything goes wrong. I repair it. And this is what I don't like about gas heaters. You can't repair gas heaters. Although if you're a huge explosion, you probably think, oh yeah, no, I wouldn't even attempt to touch it. But this is the thing. Everything now is sealed unit. You can't replace. It's frustrating.
And even if you could get it open, you'd look inside and you'd see a whole set of solid state components that you can't.
Right. Well,
I mean,
that's right. You're spot on. I mean, both.
I mean, things like electric motors were mechanical. You know, they might have been powered by electricity, but you opened up and they had brushes. And, you know, if it wasn't working, well, you just have to do something with the brushes. Or, you know, there'd be other things that mechanically were wrong and you could do something yourself to repair them. Whereas now they're powered by a chip and there's nothing you can do.
Well, that's right. That's right.
But the other thing, of course, the other part of this consumer society is advertising. And, you know, that advertising isn't just about selling goods. It isn't just about telling you, by the way, if you have blocked drains, our product is really effective. It's about, and you can be more successful in life if you buy this overpriced product. You'll be more attractive to the opposite sex if you wear this cologne. it'd be just all of this stuff that people don't really need. It's selling ideas rather than products. It's selling lifestyles rather than products. And this again has an effect that people think that they can buy happiness, which they can't. Happiness is something that you make through engagement in a social way. And that's the thing that's actually quite destructive about all of this. By the way, I realize, you know, that there might be a place for promoting products, but this is something different, which is actually encouraging people not to understand how their own place in their own lives. This is encouraging people to be passive and to buy things rather than to work out how to make your own life into what you want it to be.
Oh, and I'll tell you
There
something.
are some you can't buy, you've got to choose.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. I mean, I actually repair old bikes. And
that's a good thing.
And I'll tell you, so between you and I'm thinking of going to see an analyst about this. I've actually got 6 bicycles. I don't know what it is about bicycles. I started off with 1, then it's 2, and then it's 3, and 2 cars, and I'm looking for a third. So, but there would be something I want to work on myself. And you know something? The older bicycles are the most reliable, and they're a little bit more heavier. But I mean, I've often gone on. I'm probably going to upset cyclists now. Sorry, Sue. That I don't like index gears on bikes. I like the older style where you can go straight to the top gear, or straight down to lower gear, and doing it by feel, and that feels a lot better. I mean, I've got a bike that's about 1980s, I think it is, or it's a bit heavier, and much heavier than carbon fiber bikes, but I can get into top gear faster than almost anybody else. Straight and then back again, you know. And all right, it's a bit of having to change gears down on the frame, not on the handles. But when you look at the quality, like Sun derailleur gears and things like that, and not derailleurs, the gearing itself, real solid, really tough metal. But look now, very flimsy, I found. And I found with chains.
So I have this friend who got this Peugeot bike from the 1980s. You know, he bought it. Nice. Yeah, what a great bike. Everyone admired it. You know, and there it was, you know, like 40 years old, and it's still going great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. Mind you,
what we were talking about was psychological conditioning.
That's right, yeah.
And I think what's happened is when people become passive, it's this passivity that makes them unhappy. We've got to understand this direct relationship between not engaging in your own life, thinking that, it's all just a matter of buying a ready-made product, rather than the work that you have to put in to make your life how you want it to be, and how you start with a situation that you may be not happy with and how you manage to improve it. People are not really educated about how to work with what they've got. And we're not just talking about, making physical things, fashioning, I don't know, a toy out of wood. We're not talking about that. We're talking about how you engage with your life and with your relationships, how you change your world. Because, but for most of us, the most important things in our life are not the material things. They're the human connections, being part of a family, a society, having meaning, that you feel that your life matters to other people. We're missing all of that. This is something that people used to pick up in their families, but families have become absent and dysfunctional through a number of reasons, including television, including social media, and of course, family breakdown and divorce. That people are missing the things. They're missing the extended family. They're missing the grandparents who lived round the corner, who were there to give them, the sage advice. They're not meeting. Very often all they see is a nuclear family. They see parents who are under stress. They're not actually seeing the wider family, the wider contacts, which is all part of healthy growth and understanding, the real process of learning.
Right. And also that bonds that, when I look back to my childhood, my parents were there, my granddad and grandmother were there, and the wiseness and the wisdom that you got from these people, because they'd all been through, my grandparents had been through the First World War, my dad had been through the Second World War. But should we have a quick look in chat? Because there's a lot in there. I think, shall I start at the bottom and go upwards? That sounds a bit rude, doesn't it?
Whatever you think.
And by the way, I do like carbon fiber bikes, but the trouble is that they're bloody expensive. And also, you do not leave that chained to a post on its own for very long, especially. But now we got here, what's this? We've got, I think Nathan has covered about the lot. Yes, we are. And we've got here, BP better than a fix-it badge. Blue Peter better than a fix-it badge. Oh, yes. Now then. This is Tina Elizabeth. Doctor, I feel like a pair of curtains. Doctor said, come now, pull yourself together. Oh. Shall I tell the biscuit joke? I think I can get away with it. Two blokes walking to the psychiatrist, you see, and one bloke's got his old fella in a tin of Jacob's biscuits, you see. And the psychiatrist says, what's the matter with him? He says, he says effing crackers. I've had to mould that one out a little bit, If you get the right person, I agree. Obviously, they can likely help a lot. Yes. I'm actually an expert at getting Nathan. The other Nathan, I can never get his second name, but Lucius and we're actually experts at finding the wrong females. So if you want any professional advice, if you want, if you're sort of like Casanova, that women just run and you're trying to fight them off, come to us. We can give professional advice on how to find the wrong person. We're genius at it. I've actually got a weirdometer, you see. If I walk into a room of 99 normal females and one complete and utter raving nutcase, the nutcase will be attracted to it. I don't know what it is. So, now it's just here. Psychologists serve a much more useful purpose, surely. Don't know.
Some of them do.
Yes. It's like a statistician believes that if you put your head in an oven and your feet in a bucket of ice water, on average, you'll be perfectly right temperature. When you think about it, yes. Anyway, it says here, British supplements, clean vitamins. That's cat. Yes, here we go. Actually, Lambert's are pretty good. And Nature's Dooflop Aid, I think it is. Also by my friend who is very, very keenly priced at Abbey Health Foods. Now, Horrendous Get Fucked says they let us go at it hammer and tongs. You're right. Putting one tribe against the other tribe. That's it. Haji says order out of chaos, I think. HO at the moment, everything at every level. Yes, that's right. No H and S in class in the 70s on the forge, lathe, oxy, etc. Do you get that one, Nathan? No H and S in class. H and S in class in the 70s. Probably will after the show. I'm a bit thick, Duh. Oh, actually, it might be in reply to another one. Do they teach... here we are. This is Haji beforehand. Do they teach woodwork and metalwork and cooking in schools these days? Or has health and safety intervened? And then a Horrendous Getfuck says, no health and safety in class. That's it. No health and safety in class in the 70s on the forge, lathe, oxy, etc. Yes, that's right. Yes. Now we got here a peddler's license costs £12.25, does it? Problem being, I'd have to keep moving and carry me goods, need a license for everything. I think sea fishing on the shoreline is exempt. Yeah, because I've actually seen near the River Lee, because I live near the River Lee. I've been there on my push bike, and there used to be a bloke on a moped that was like an officer that went round people fishing and asking for money for their license, or checking whether they've got a license. Now this is an interesting one. Oh, by the way, pens are friends. Well, yeah, I suppose it could be, yes. Graham Moore was good on Sonia Poulton's show this morning. Worth a look. 30 minutes into the show. Graham Moore, is he that bloke who runs the English Constitution Party? I think it might be. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then we go. Oh, Joe Cocker. I get by with a little help from my friends. Good record. Yeah, the man that used to throw his arms and legs all over the place. He looks as if he'd just taken a sort of hallucinogenic drug that didn't quite agree with him. Do you remember Joe Cocker? He used to do all this on the stage.
I've heard about it.
Andrew Anderson, I think his name is. I think, is it? I don't know. And Tina Elizabeth says, oh, I've just seen your live. Hello. Oh, yes. 6 Fox Bobs or detention. There we go. So so that's about it. And what we got? Hachi says, no one wants a Jim will fix it badge these days. No, he certainly did fix it for a few people, didn't he? I think some people, shall we say, a lot of people fixed it for him. That's how he got away with it. But that's another subject. Anyway, sorry, Nathan. Back to you. So far away.
So here we are. We're in the situation where, a lot of people are worried, for example, rightly worried, by the way, about a totalitarian state. They're worried about losing our freedom. But equally, they should be worried about losing their lives one day at a time to, depression and unhappiness. These are real things, and it's a mental prison which it's incredibly difficult to escape. We need help, we need support. I would like to encourage people to develop the kind of mutual support networks, which are not just about learning better, more positive habits in their lives. They're actually where meaning is found. So at one point, tonight, I think we've got to talk about solutions, and some of them are very practical, very simple things. It's the simple stuff that seems to elude everyone. People looking for difficult stuff, complicated. So that the most important thing at the beginning is actually to form a group. I'm not talking about a group of a dozen people. We're talking about buddies, perhaps. Let's call them buddies. Groups of 3 people. That's the natural level at which people form these networks. Let's try to organize people to get, say, 2 buddies, perhaps 3, to make a little group. This is a very effective thing to do. It's a natural organizing level. If perhaps you want to bring half a dozen people together, well, you can bring 2 of these buddy groups together. But it's really important to have constructive partners to get to know each other well. Now let's go back to something else that people used to do. They used to dine together. They used to eat. I mentioned this earlier in the show. Maybe you should try and eat with these buddies, these friends, at least once a week. Not drink, you notice. I don't say go down to the pub. Not because I'm being kind of morally censorious. It's just, unfortunately, let's be realistic about this. Eating food is associated with many constructive attitudes, whereas drinking alcohol is a whole other bag. Doesn't have to be elaborate. Hey, beans on toast. The point is that you're together and that you're using this opportunity to talk. There are other things that people do. Bread making group. I know this is going to sound absurd, but making bread, takes a couple of hours. I don't know if you've got that long, but it's the sort of thing. The ingredients are not expensive. You mix the dough. It takes an hour to rise. You put it in the oven. It takes 3/4 of an hour. Most of the time you're doing very little. You're actually talking around, but it's all part of a constructive activity. This is what women do naturally. Women tend to be much better than men at social activities. They're much better. Men have got a problem on the whole, that women, naturally have got better instincts, but men find it difficult to make these sort of cooperative social bonds. And we need to learn from some of these activities, getting together and doing things together. Women naturally will go around to their friends' houses for a cup of coffee, but they'll do something. If you have a constructive activity, it adds a positive energy to everything you do. So that 2 very simple things. So I encourage people, for example, to think about a spiritual practice. So this is something that you do every day, perhaps when you get up in the morning. Some people meditate. I think that's very good. Other people perhaps don't feel ready for that. But something like yoga, has a lot of spiritual dimensions to it.
I do yoga.
Yoga classes can be a bit daunting. I think men, for example, might find it difficult to go along to a yoga class full of women. It's just out of place there. But it's amazing what you can learn from a book. You don't have to necessarily be part of a group, although it's kind of good if you can. And there are other things that you can do as well. So religion's a bit of a sensitive subject because many people naturally these days feel disinclined to religion. But you can get religion without religion. So, for example, the Quakers are completely non-denominational these days. You do not have to believe in God to go along to the Quakers. The Quakers will accept atheists. They'll accept there is a Quaker humanist group inside the Quakers. There is a Quaker Buddhist group inside the Quakers. You do not have to be a Christian. Things that the Quakers insist on are ethics and sort of a meditative practice. This is something that they try to cultivate. Quakers actually have a very well-organized introductory program. They offer meeting now, in addition to their Sunday morning meetings, they have meetings during the week where they will show beginners how to learn the habits of spiritual practice in their lives. And some of them are quite simple things like trying to recollect what you did during the day when you go to bed at night, or making a plan in the morning for what you hope to achieve during the day, and then thinking at night whether or not you achieved it. Now, this mightn't sound very big to a lot of people, and yet it makes a lot of difference. There are lots of quite simple things that people who are new to spirituality find they need to learn. And going along to a group like this, completely free now, you're not talking about having to give away any money, and you'll get such a lot from it. There are things that initially it seems hard to believe this is going to make a difference, and yet turn out to be incredibly effective, even after just a few weeks, perhaps even within a week, if you do this every day. Now, this is the way you start to build constructive new habits in your life. Something else, problem solving. This is a very important part of being constructive. So there was a guy called Edward de Bono, wrote a series of books in the 1960s and 70s about lateral thinking. Lateral thinking, in effect, is about finding solutions. Say you've got a problem. There might be one answer that you could think of, but you mightn't be able to do it. It might require resources that you don't have. But there might be other ways around the problem. So, for example, every problem has, and we've talked about this before, Eric, the bridge over the river, for example. You can build a bridge, but you might be able to do that. You could go by boat, it might be a ferry, or you could have stepping stones. Or in China, they've got these incredibly huge rivers that race through gorges, and people cross them on zip wires. Very difficult to build a bridge, but just get a piece of rope, throw it across, and then you make a zip wire. And Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, if you start thinking laterally, solutions appear.
But we've all got individual talents, haven't we? I mean, the thing
That's right.
is that I do believe, I mean, one of my views is that like attracts like. And my uncles, who were comedians, they always endeavoured to leave a room with people laughing, create laughter. And I think that these big puffed up nothings in power, they need to be laughed at. I mean, as I've said the other week, when Keir Starmer makes an appearance, why not everybody just whistle Laurel and Hardy theme tune? Dun, 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 dun. How demoralising is that? But the thing is that there are people like myself, though, who are sort of like loners uh, that I've worked on my own. So if somebody gives me a problem, I then solve that problem and come back in architecture, say. I will work on my own to work that problem out. You know, this is part of different components and really complicated putting bits and designing things that go in to make things work and things like that. And not everybody is very good in a group situation. I'm not. I'm not that comfortable in groups, and that's the way I am. And there's a lot of people like that. But I still think we can have, shall we say, we can have an input because people could recognise that and say, okay, right, there's a problem here. Can you go and solve it? And whoop, you just wander off and you solve it and you come back. You know, that's it. But the only problem with groups is that if someone has an ego trip and tries to become a leader, because I don't believe that. I think groups can form, and it's when you get the leaders, it becomes a cult. That's the problem. You don't need a leader as such.
Although sometimes it can really help having somebody else to talk to. And, you know, you can talk to somebody else and you just talk to them and they don't say anything in reply. And yet somehow talking to them solves your problem. So I think it's great to have colleagues sometimes.
Oh, yes. I agree with you there.
Problem shared is a problem halved. I think there's a lot to be said for, not feeling alone with the problem.
I agree with you. Now, when I say problems, I'm talking about design problems, not
I understand
problems. Yeah, but the thing is that the big problem is that we've been conditioned to follow a leader. And look, a perfect example was the Yellow Vests in France. They didn't have a leader, and the French government wanted their leader, and they said, we haven't got one. But it's very successful. Yeah. The Boers, because people say, oh, it's natural for you to want a leader. No, it isn't. Look at the Boers. The Boers, the Boer War, they actually had a very successful campaign against one of the most efficient armies in the world at that time, which was the British Army. And they kept them there for several years. They pinned them down. And they worked in groups of threes, like what you were saying. Very efficient, very well done. And they were just Boer farmers. I don't think they had a rank situation. It was just a case of sorry, I'm taking off a Boer now. Should we go and hijack? No, should we go and attack the British tonight? No, I'm busy milking the cows. I can't do that. I think my brother might be able to help out. And that was the sort of level that it was. But it was very, very efficient. And they didn't have a leader as such. So I think that things can, shall we say, naturally move forward. And you might have somebody who might be a figurehead, perhaps, but are not a leader as such. And that
point out, I'm sure this isn't necessary, but we are not talking about building a terrorist or military organization.
Oh, no. Sorry, that probably sounded like that.
Talking about that at all.
No, but
we are talking about a mutual support network so that people don't feel alone and so that people build positive networks, supportive networks where they can find encouragement and link up with other groups when they want to attempt larger projects. And it's amazing what you can do when you've got buddies.
Yes, I agree with you. Sorry, that did sound early as if I was going to not talking about anything aggressive.
I'm sure you didn't mean that, and I just thought.
Thanks for adding that in, because people are like, oh, he's going to start something. Now, what I mean to say though is, I think we've got too much bureaucracy in society, over the top health and safety. Yeah, I agree with health and safety to a point. Yes, I mean, it's not nice breathing in toxic whatever, but the thing is, there's a big difference between, when you're talking about the environment, from pollution, which I think is in everybody's interest to not have pollution, to an agenda which is nothing to do with the environment whatsoever, but they say it is about the environment. It's nothing to do with the environment. It's everything to do about imposing communism. That's what it's about. So I think,
Can I jump in and get back to a theme that I was trying to develop earlier?
Yeah.
Because I think we might be glad, to just remember this. So depression is the symptom of people who feel they've lost control of their own lives, their minds, and their emotions. I think that they feel that they're not set in the direction. They don't, because they're not set in the direction of their lives, because they're effectively dancing to somebody else's tune. It doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. When you understand the reason why you're doing something, when you're involved in the choices, you feel the meaning and you feel the motivation. When you're responding to cues from advertising, when you're buying things on a whim, when you're following orders, things don't make sense and you don't feel that sort of purpose. This is where the difference between passivity and being a consumer is different to being active and making real, meaningful choices, that you're actually shaping things in your own life. I hope that's an important distinction that people will appreciate.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. And
so at the minute we have people are in this awful state. It seems like 2/3 of the population are living in depression. Let's mention Matthias Desmet, because I think this is really important.
My hero.
Matthias Desmet talked about, he's got this great book, The Psychology of Totalitarianism. And he talks about how there's this condition, the mass formation, that happens when a substantial proportion of society feels isolated, that they're not making meaning in their lives, that they feel anxiety because they don't understand the purpose of their lives. And because of all of this, they feel incredible aggression. So they have this sense of isolation, that they don't have close bonds with other people. They don't have meaning and purpose. Because of that, they feel anxiety and aggression. The aggression comes from their own confusion and feeling very uncertain and lost. Now, when you have a large percentage of society feeling like this, they can be taken over by a totalitarian movement. And I'm sure nobody wants that. So if we can shift people out of this state of mind, that's got to be a good thing. So we don't want a totalitarian takeover of our society, do we?
No.
People have got to feel healthy. They've got to, instead of feeling isolated, they need to feel connected. Instead of feeling that they don't have a purpose, they need to feel that they've got meaning. Get meaning through connection, through feeling that they make a difference to the people who are around them. It's feeling that they're actually shaping their own lives, and understanding what it takes to be an active participant, to have it's the meaning comes from spirituality. Ultimate meaning comes from spirituality. Spirituality is something different to religion. They're very closely associated, but they are different things. So, for example, if you are an atheist or you're a humanist, you can still have spirituality. So, I mean, it's really perhaps worth talking about, what spirituality is about. Spirituality is about your own spirit, not necessarily, about, how can we put this? It's the difference between the mind and the body. The spirit's part of your mind. It's part of, for example, artistic fulfillment. It's part of creativity. It's part of feeling that you want to get up in the morning because there are things that you want to do because your life has meaning. It's wanting to be alive. This is ultimately what spirituality is about. We just assume that people have got this, but it's something that a lot of people have neglected. They've stopped feeling it. It's just eat, sleep, work. That's all it is. They get up, they go to work, have something to eat, they go to bed. They don't have any purpose. They wonder why they're alive. This is ultimately what the state of languishing that 50% of the population lives in. This is what it's about. Getting up every day and doing what you've always done and wondering why. Life can be so much more than this. That's really what we want. We want to give people a reason to feel alive again.
I think that's basically what Yuri Bezmenov was talking about in his speeches in the 1980s, early 1980s. And he did a talk with G. Edward Griffin, which was very, very good. I think about 1983, 84, around about that time. And he was saying it's this kind of spirituality, which is like the, I can't remember it verbatim, but it was on the lines of, it's the mortar that holds the bricks of society together. He said, once you've lost that, then everything just falls to bits.
And it's actually so much more because, it's actually your reason to be alive. I mean, if you just don't care, if you get to the point that you don't care, then you don't care about, for example, morality. You don't care about the people around you. You don't care about yourself, frankly. We've got to give people reason to care. We want people to care about other people. That's a very important social thing. There's something else I'd like to talk about here. So we've talked about how people have become conditioned and how they've become passive. And how do they break out of this? So there are lots of things that make people passive. We've talked about, for example, advertising. We've talked about the consumer society. So it ends up that people are just making choices like, do I buy this brand of baked beans or do I buy that brand of baked beans? It's not about, do I do something completely different? Do I really need to buy anything? Actually, do I need to be outside kicking a football? Rather than just being consumers looking for things to buy, we want to think about our own choices. So I've tried to identify sort of three components here. So people who are self-aware and conscious know when they're being manipulated. So they don't just respond to advertising because they're actually conscious of what's going on in their own mind. People who have their own minds and their own agenda. You know, they have a reason to be alive. They know what they want, intending to do in life. They know when they get up each day what their plan for the day is, what they want. People who are happy and confident and not afraid. Because a lot of people go along with things in society because they're afraid of being laughed at. You know, that people who buy an expensive car because they don't want people to laugh at them for being inadequate. You know, a lot of advertising, I'm sorry to criticize advertisers here, but a lot of advertising is about selling status symbols to people who feel weak and inadequate. Well, we don't want people to feel weak and inadequate. We don't want people to buy stuff because they're full of self-doubt.
Have you heard that one? Do you remember when they had, before smartphones, are you ashamed of your mobile phone? Then upgrade. You know,
yeah.
People going, oh, look, he's got a terrible. I've never, ever come across anybody saying, you know, oh, well, he got a terrible smartphone. But I'll tell you what I did. I did have, a couple of years ago, some characters coming around the doors saying, you've got very bad moss on your roof, sir. I think your roof needs painting. Huh?
Painting?
Painting, yeah. And they had these bozos getting all the moss off the roof and then painting this, Christ knows what it was, on the roof. Made a terrible mess of everything. And a couple of the neighbours fell for it. I mean, will somebody go to your house and say, I'm not going in your house. I've seen the moss on your roof. It's bloody disgusting. It really is. No. Moss actually protects your roof in many ways. Don't worry about it. Roof is built to, it's designed to last 100 years. I wouldn't worry. At least, that's right. So, you know, I don't think I've ever had anybody say, well, I went and visited his house and, you know, the moss on his roof was really terrible. It really was.
So actually, I'll tell you who cleans the moss off our roof. The magpies every spring.
Oh, they do, Ramart. Yeah, they do. They, all through the year. But actually, I've got a between you and I. But don't tell this to anybody else. I've got a deal with Eric the pigeon, and what I do, I feed the pigeon, and he shits on one of my neighbours who I don't like. He shits on his car. Good deal that is, you know. Through for me. Shit on his car, you know. That's now, someone's hereditous skeptic says here. Hang on, here it is. Oh, hang on, it's gone again, is it? I think this is Bruce Lee. Also said, when you walk with dog do, you walk with flies. Yes, I think you're quite true there. It's a bit like Waltham Cross. When you leave Waltham Cross, a certain part of you, now a certain part of Waltham Cross leaves with you, and it's usually the dog shit on the ground, on the sole of your shoe. Not really joking. Actually, there isn't much dog shit there. Harlow's the place for dog shit. I'm trying dog shit there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah,
so it's amazing.
You know, the world.
there are some things that have changed for the better. So when I was a kid, there was dog shit everywhere, and you had to walk around looking at the pavement or stand in it. And then suddenly they brought in these rules that you had to pick up after your dog, and it all went.
Oh,
just like that.
Apart from Harlow, but what they do. There's a path, and I call it the path of the hanging lanterns. Because what people do, they collect their dog shit in a paper, in a plastic bag, and then they tie it. What's all that about? Tie it to a branch. So you got all these branches of dog shit, all various conditions of decomposing. So, you know, might walk past it and you got some dog shit hanging out of some plastic, which is just sort of rotting away. You know,
Biodegradable plastic.
that's right. To me, what is it? I suppose they don't want to take it home with them, you know.
And they can't be bothered to take it in the bin.
No. So that actually tie it, that takes a bit more effort. Tie it to a branch. It's got all these dog shit hanging on the branch.
What happens on a windy day?
But do you get that where you live? I mean, is it very real? Do you find people?
Rarely. There are one or two places.
Yeah. But that's quite common round here, you know. But the other one I was walking along once and this woman with this bloody great dog, and this dog was doing what cats do, go sort of
Oh yes.
dog shit and this grass that just, because gardening round where I live, the council gardeners, all it is electric strimmers and blowers, and they were blowing the grass. The grass just been moved from one area to another area, and this dog was throwing shit and grass all over the path. Oh, she excuse my dog. I said, it was a bit like humans don't do it as well. I doubt whether she picked it up. But no, you're
so. Eric, do you remember? Before they got these, the council got these motorized lawnmowers. There used to be people come round, and before they got strimmers, there used to be people come round and mow the grass by hand.
Yes, I
with
remember
a
that.
scythe. Do you remember people with a scythe?
I don't remember a scythe. No, I always remember. I'm not that old. I remember them going round. I think they used to have petrol things. I don't think they did it by. I can't remember. Got a good point.
So I can remember them having lawnmowers, and I can remember for the bits that now would be done with a strimmer, they used to have a scythe.
Really? Because I know that when strimmers first came out, A&E wards of hospitals were full of people that had just mangled up their feet with the strimmer because they've gone over their toes. Don't seem to have it so much now because of a new thing. Oh, I wonder what a strimmer does. Yeah, they reckon that the A&Es was full of these people with shoes that are sort of split at the top, blood pouring out everywhere. Yeah, that's when, I think in the 70s, 80s they came out, but it was very common for that to happen. But people sort of got to use them, but not know about them. But little tip between you and I: if you've got a strimmer, the cable keeps wearing down. Put a cable tie round instead of that plastic, and it lasts 3 times as long. It does exactly the same. So, yes, but don't get it near your shoes, and don't be barefooted like I am most of the time. You know. But we've actually come into the end of the show. I'm sorry about this. So, you know, we've got about another couple of minutes. Do you think we need to stretch over to another show, or could we? What do you think?
I'm always very glad to talk to you, Eric. You can invite me back anytime you like. I hope tonight's really helped. I would like people to try and think of what they can do in a more positive way. You know, we are not powerless. There are enormous things that we can actually change the world. Each of us can change the world. The trouble is, at the minute, a lot of people feel very disempowered.
Yes.
And it's a false perception that comes from consumerism.
Well, not only consumerism, but fear porn. There's fear porn everywhere.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, World War III, monkey, you know, don't be careful, you know, it's contagious, and this is it drives you up the wall. How did our ancestors survive in such a dangerous world? Because they must have survived, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them, and they didn't have health and safety or anything like that. You know, it's quite surprising. So, you know,
They survive differently, and you know, when life was dangerous, and there were many things that could go wrong, um, but we live in safety and yet fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got much greater safety, and yet we don't have greater security, greater happiness. Somehow it's all gone wrong. There's something that we've lost, and we need to rediscover it. And it's primarily our connection with other people and with the simple things of life.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's
So
simple.
going back to political change,
Mm.
it starts with an empowered state of mind.
Hmm.
If you believe that you can do things, then you can start to achieve. People who won't respond and have become inert will achieve nothing,
I agree with you.
sadly.
The person achieved nothing. Was it, what's that, the old saying now? Person that never made a mistake never achieved, never did anything really, because
So I
you
think
learn from your
Aristotle
mistakes.
said something, never was a man so foolish who, because he could only do a little, did nothing at all.
That's it.
So that's the type of attitude I'd like to encourage people to leave behind,
That's it.
so
Person,
that
that's
they feel that their contribution would be insignificant. They're wrong. You know, they can make a huge difference.
wouldn't it be
Even,
nice? I agree. I 100% agree, because wouldn't it be nice if we could just start a business and not worry about tax and things like that? That's what it was like in the Victorian times. I don't think they bothered with. So it's only the rich that pay tax. It wasn't the poor. I don't think they paid tax. You know, it's surprising, but that's another subject for another show.
it's not just about you know, the niceties of administration. It's about having a sense of purpose and not getting lost in the detail.
You're right.
And you know that there's the joy in doing things. Somehow we've lost the joy. But I'm going to come back to this. The truth movement is too obsessed with problems.
Yes.
It's always looking at problems, and it's not looking for solutions.
And it's looking for leaders as well. That's the main thing. Oh, look, he said this, she said that. Oh,
Because we don't
oh,
have the
poor
power
old Tommy.
ourselves.
Hmm.
They believe that they don't have the power themselves.
Hmm.
They don't realize that they're able to think of the solutions, successful solutions themselves. They've
That's right.
lost their own power.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So I have
that can
actually,
be contagious, can't it? I mean, that's the thing. That negativity is contagious,
yeah.
and it's. I realised I was getting very negative, so you know, it is surprising. You know,
A lot of people can slip into it without even noticing.
what I was saying about hive minds. We're all prone to hive minds, and it's
Yes.
surprising if you're in a group situation, we're not immune from it. And I was developing it. It's quite disturbing. It really is. When you know, and that's the thing. But on another positive note, talking about depression, this will give you depression. We're still going to do in a couple of weeks' time the world's or the country's worst record show. So we're going to play the cringing, and so far Donny Osmond, Puppy Love, is top of the list. But I've got a cracker. I think it might win. I mean, we've got Florence. That was the world's worst opera singer. You ever heard of her murdering Mozart? Ooh, oh, it's terrible. It really is. But I've got one between you and I'm going to will this out as my secret weapon. Electronic organ music. I'm not talking about popcorn and music like that. I'm talking about, you know, those Hammond organs. No, sorry, I gave them a trade name. They're all right. Hammonds are okay. I'm talking about electric organs that people could buy in the 1970s, where they'd say, "Oh, this sounds like a banjo," and it sounded like sort of electronic fart sounds. Oh, look, this is a grand piano. Doesn't it sound like one? My parents were obsessed with electronic organs. I hate them. I loathe the sound of them. And every LP they bought of these people playing them all had the same smell. They also had they had these really rather disgusting sounding names like Vibrating Wow and a Vibra Wow, and Fred Bloggs and his amazing Vibra Wow. And you think, sounds very sexual connotations to it. All sort of,
So I have to tell you, the Hammond organ was quite a thing.
I love Hammond. That was a
Jimmy Smith.
Oh, Walk on Water, Wade on Water. Is it Jimmy Smith?
Yeah.
Yes, I love the Hammond sound. Don't get me wrong, but then you had all these other cheap organs that you could buy.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't that cheap. They're bloody expensive. They're bloody great things, about the size of a grand piano. And they made these sort of fart sounds. I just hate them. Because the only person enjoying the sound is the person that's playing it. I got dragged along to quite a few of these shows where they played these organs. It was like, it was so bad it gave you toothache. I mean, I absolutely mind you, the only positive, there's always a bit of positive comes out of negative, is it would cure constipation. It gives you the shit. If I got captured and I was put in a torture chamber and they played one of those electronic organs to me, I'd crack in about 5 minutes, I think. No, I don't want to hear anymore. I guess you didn't have to suffer that. Your parents weren't into electronic organs, were they?
No.
You were not. Oh, aren't you lucky? What a lucky person you were. I've got many a story about those electronic organs. Anyway, gonna be sued by Hammond now, who will make very. I think are they still in production, Hammond organs? I don't know.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah, Focus. The group Focus, they used a Hammond. They're a Dutch group, making Focus waves and that sort of. Hey man, it's rock. Yeah, groovy, progressive rock they called it.
Now there was
Hocus Pocus.
If you ever saw him, was he called Dr. Lonnie Smith?
No.
And he wore a turban, and he played the Hammond organ, and he was something else.
Yeah, there is something about a Hammond which is a unique sound. All of it.
Oh yes,
but not the associated organs that tried to copy a Hammond and made fart sounds instead.
So apparently Jimmy Smith, we both know Jimmy Smith, the audience might. Yeah. He was the guy who really got a great sound out of the Hammond. He was this jazz star of the. He appeared in the sort of the 60s. Anyway. Apparently, he had a Hammond organ and he kept it in a furniture warehouse. And he practiced in this furniture warehouse where no one would hear him for 10 years before he thought he could make a sound that he wasn't ashamed for the public to hear. So that's perhaps the mistake these other people are making, that they need to work a bit harder before they've got the idea.
You could have a perfect musician, an excellent musician, trying to play one of those bloody things, and it would still sound like farts. I'm sorry, because it all sounded electronically, Oh, listen, there's a harp. No, it's not like a harp. Oh, it's a banjo. But hang on a minute. Don't get your xylophone out. Rolf Harris has got a bad reputation. Oh yeah. Yeah, he had problems with his didgeridoo, didn't he? He kept moving his didgeridoo around. You know?
Yeah, he was a
Yeah,
problem.
I always found him creepy. There's something about that man because he kept the same act going year after year. He never changed it from the 1960s. What's this? I made an electric guitar out of some wires and a plank plugged in. It plugged it in. It almost electrocuted myself. Well, before my time, apparently there was skiffle where people had sort of old.
Oh, yes.
Well, it's
I
before
know a couple of people who play skiffle.
really.
Yeah, yeah.
It's it's quite clever, very imaginative.
Yeah.
But also, you don't get people playing the saw anymore. You know.
Oh, I used to know somebody who did. You get musical saws.
Yeah, they did it between their knees, didn't they? There was a Derek Geiler.
You bend it.
That's right,
And,
Derek
and
Geiler.
depending on the tension, that's
Yeah.
the notes. Yeah.
Oh, hang
So
on.
I know a guy. I know a guy who's a clown. He's a circus clown,
Really?
and he's got a series of musical saws.
Good heavens! But by the way, we got Maureen here. Hello, Maureen Walters. I think you know Maureen, don't you?
I do. Yes.
Hi,
The
Chris
lovely Maureen.
and Nathan. Hello, Maureen.
Good to see you, Maureen.
Anyway, we've run well over time, and this is the part where I sit and I say, "Where the bloody hell is the outro gone?" Which
You've got to kick me off now.
Yeah, we've got to kick you off, but stay on. We'll speak afterwards, so don't worry.
All right.
So, thank you very much for joining us tonight, Nathan. We had a good laugh, and we hope
My pleasure. Thank you.
learned a lot. Thank you for coming along, and I'm also I'm sometimes on Thursdays. I go on to the Paul English show. I'm a guest on there, so, not a guest. I'm sort of in the studio, sort of hello, things like that. And there's a Sunday show as well coming up. And next Sunday we've got natural law, morality, and ethics. Ooh, so there we go. And we got quite a bit coming up. We got Dawn Lester, Josie, Nathan L. Who else we got? Was it Keir Starmer? He did phone up. I said, sod off. And if you believe that, you believe anything, In fact, I probably would tell him a sod off. Hello. I can't tell his voice. It's a very difficult voice to take off, isn't it? It's not sort of. It's just sort of like boring, isn't it? That's a bit northern. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for coming on the show. And whatever.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Dave. Have a bloody good laugh and good night.
See you soon.